certainly am not Will's Carter. I am the producer, Film Dina. I have been their producer since day one. And to celebrate day 45, I have said, listen, why don't you guys take the night off from interviewing anybody? Let me do the interview. And so this week, hanging out with the Carters, I am interviewing two of the most amazing people I have ever met in my life. Two people who are absolute pillars of the community, and two people who I adore and consider family, even though they don't like me all the time. I love them to death. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and my pleasure to introduce Wills and Denise Carter. Welcome to Hanging Out with the Carters for the first time. You're being interviewed.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love
Absolutely.
it. What do you love most about it, Wills?
Hey, about the time I find out what's going on in that head of yours.
What do you mean?
Hey,
Yeah, Wills, what do you mean by that?
yeah, we got to find out what's really making you tick.
Well,
I can answer some of that.
okay, answer that question, Phil.
Well,
I like it.
here's what I think makes Denise tick. I know what ticks her off is when the microphone's not close to Will's mouth, like it isn't right now. So, Wills, if you can just hold that just a little bit, there you go.
How about that? Did that work?
I think what makes Denise tick, and again, we're going to find out everything we can, because I want to know where you guys were before you met each other. I want to know what it was like, because I do know that you guys met at a dance club, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, look
You
at
met
you.
at a dance club, and Wills was afraid to dance with you, Denise, because of your braids. You were spinning him around, and he did not want to lose an eye, is what he said. And
Absolutely.
and he said, and I remember everything, your guys' conversation. I know during episode 6, we talked about your wig that you
Yes.
wear. You said that Wills put the wig on, and it was the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life.
I don't remember that part.
I totally
You did.
remember.
You did put the wig on. I took a picture. I have a picture of one of my phones.
So we want to know, as listeners, and believe me, I have listened to every episode more than once. I want to know what is going on with the Carters. And I'm going to start this interview with Wills.
Okay.
Wills,
Go for it.
the patriarch of the Carter family.
Uh-huh.
Wills, tell me, where were you born? And I know it was Alabama
Mm-hmm.
and Mississippi, Alabama.
Alabama.
Okay, see, I got it. I'm going to edit that part out. Alabama is where you were born.
Absolutely.
What year were you born in? And what year did you graduate from high school?
Well, I think I take the fifth on both of those.
You know, nobody knows Will's age. Nobody
Yeah.
knows. Nobody, and that's something that's a hidden secret. Because
But
Will,
that,
you could either be 45 years old or you could be something else.
yeah, 80 or 60. I don't
You
know.
look good though.
But
You look really good. If you're 160 years old, you would look amazing.
But to answer the second part of that, I did do the GED with the military.
Okay.
Yeah, because I dropped out of high school to get on the serious side for 1 minute. I dropped out of high school so we can all help support the 10 kids in the family. And so that's what happened with that. And I decided to go in the military so that I could get a job, get education, and also learn a trade and buy a house.
So I know you were in the military, but what did you do before you were in the military? What were you doing to support the family? What was your career path at that point as a young man?
As a young man, anything that pays money.
Right.
So that included working on the 7-Up soft drink truck, construction, pretty much anything that pays.
You worked at a hamburger stop.
Yeah, I did that too.
You swept up some places. I remember you.
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about
But now that was a sore spot. I was a young kid, and
Right.
and this is back in Alabama, and I used to go up there and sweep the parking lots and stuff out. The people throw their trash out over the weekend, and of course that was, like I said, in Alabama, you had this colored only or white only water fountains and all of that. But that was trying times. And I told my mom, hey, I'm going to leave this job. I can't stand this.
Right.
And she says, she understood, but she says, hey, find you another job before you leave. Right. And so then that's what I did. I went to a grocery store, I think. As a matter of fact, that's another job, working in the grocery store.
See, I knew we had something.
Yeah.
Because I did that too.
And God, that was probably the best job.
Oh God, that was the worst job for me. I was like, I saw PTSD about that place.
Yeah. Now they had a kitchen there, so then being that we spent half of our childhood starving, with my brother and I, once we got in that store, And they basically would go on vacation, leave us with the store, and we can cook anything we want. Steaks, pork chops, the works.
Why you get all excited?
Hey man,
He's hungry.
yeah, hey man, that was fun times.
I bet that was, but here's my question. Now, growing up in the South in that time frame where you had those pretty much just a dumb way of thinking. I'm going to say it right now. It was very dumb and very ignorant way of thinking because looking at what's going on in the climate today, being Hispanic,
Yeah.
I never in a million years would be like, oh, I know what you're going through. I know, I get it. I hear it.
Yeah.
Never would think that, but this is what we're going through today. So someone that's living with it right now as being a very proud Mexican-American man to a very proud African-American man. What was that like as a child having these, I want to be nice. So I'm going to be nice. Inbred pieces of shit, saying these things to you, acting the way they did. What was that like as a child? What made you say it? What gave you enough and said, I'm out of here. I'm leaving. I'm going to the military. I've had enough.
Well, it didn't really have that much to do with that portion of it. What got me was I needed to have a career, make some changes in my life, and the military was a way out. And it was during the Vietnam eras, and then my parents says, hey, people are dying coming back home in body bags. And I looked at them with all sincere and says, hey, people are dying around me where we live in right now. People at the little juke junks and stuff, get drunk and shoot and cut up each other. That was life. And then, of course, all the racial tension, you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that because, matter of fact, even the place of worship, I remember the first African Baptist church in particular, people just gathering for worship, and then it was over 50 people. And next thing you know, the fire department, police, tear gas, dogs, the works. And this is real life. Right. This is not, back in the day. This was in my lifetime.
So when you're looking at what's going on today and you see them yanking people out of vehicles and then just pummeling them, who we don't even know if they're real ICE agents or not.
Yeah, you don't.
When you see that happening, does it bring back makes you think like, man, I've been through this already. I see this. Yeah, but I know you sympathize with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you the first one that got me is I was a little kid. I was in the second grade. I remember when the kids was trying to go to the University of Alabama, and the governor stood there with the National Guards and would not allow the kids to come to his class. And then what president had to do, and I'm a little kid, but I was taking in all of this. And what the president ended up doing was overriding the governor and took control of the power of the National Guard so that they allowed the kids to go into the schools.
That was Governor Wallace who did that.
Yeah, George Wallace. Right. And just recently with the governor of California, right, and the orange president that we have now, right, it was pretty much the same thing. So then, and that brought back memories. I thought about it a lot.
So dealing with all that, you're a young man. Now you've decided, hey, Vietnam's happening. I'm still going to go. Yeah. I'm still going to do this. Were you drafted or did you enlist?
I was drafted, but I had a choice. I could have went to the Job Corps or any branch of the military. And what I tried to do was to find out which one had the best transitional job like into civilian life. Because I had an uncle that was driving heavy equipment at the time up in Detroit or something like that. And so I said, hey, that's what I want to do. And I know the Navy had the Seabees with the heavy equipment, but of course they ended up putting me aboard ship instead, but that was cool. I learned a lot.
So when you had the wherewithal at 18, I would think, 18, 19 years old, to say, hey, I need to go ahead and I need to find out which is going to give me the best career path as an adult for my future. Wills, nobody, I'm sure then, and I know definitely, because I have an 18-year-old niece and I have an 18-year-old nephew, and that boy is dumb as a potato. He has no desire to do anything, not get off the couch, not anything. And then hearing that somebody like yourself, 18 years old, saying they are fighting in Vietnam, I'm going to pick my best path to success at 18, that's remarkable. And I don't think anybody at this time would acts like that, has that mindset at 18.
Yeah. So in my case, I was thinking, well, I'm gonna roll the dice. I might as well try to
Right.
do something with my life. I could have stayed in the neighborhood and hopefully things would work out, or I could take a chance on learning the trade, going to college and the works, and being able to buy a house.
And you've accomplished all that.
Yeah, and that was my goals. And I said, if I stayed in the neighborhood, who knows what would have happened.
The funny thing is, and thank you for your service, by the way. I think that's an amazing
absolutely.
thing. So now let's fast forward into your military career. Vietnam's done.
Yes.
Did you stay with the Navy at that point, or did you say, okay, my time's done, I'm out of here?
No, I got my trade as I was, one of the goals that I was out there. And 3 years of saying yes, sir, no, sir, that was plenty for me. That was more than enough. And what I decided to do was to use what they taught me. I went to schools and, learned boiler schools, water firefighting, water testing, all of that stuff. And I'm still doing that right now.
Yeah, and so you did exactly what you set out to do at 18 years old.
Yes.
You found something that would carry your career to the longevity that you had now.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. So now let's fast forward even a little bit more. Now you're stationed in Hueneme, correct? I would assume that's where you're stationed. And did you just fall in love and say, hey, you know what? California is the place for me?
No, what happened is I put in for a trade. I wanted to see the world, Philippines and the works. And I put in for a trade to get to a trade to a different ship. And also I put in for a school. And one day the guy that was in charge says, hey, I got good news and bad news. I said, okay. He said, your request for school just came through. And also your request to trade to a different ship came through. He said, but you can't do both. Of course, then I opt for the education to go to school. And like they say, the rest is history.
And so now you're in Hueneme.
Now I'm in Hueneme.
You're in Hueneme, and now I know you have kids?
I have one daughter.
You have a daughter. Now, how old is your daughter?
I don't know.
Well,
oh boy, I'm gonna get letters for that one.
I'm gonna edit that all out. Don't you worry about that.
But she was. That was another long story too. She was born during those times, those young teenage years.
Gotcha.
Where I was, roaming the streets as a young man.
In Alabama?
In Alabama.
They call that a hoe.
So you find yourself here in Hueneme. You obviously have to see some kind of culture shock from California, from Alabama.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's there is no signs saying you can't drink water here.
Yeah,
there is
absolutely.
And you see the Hispanic culture is very prevalent out here, where I can't imagine in the 60s you had a Hispanic culture in Alabama.
Matter of fact, a quick side note, I spent more time doing push-ups in boot camp because they had a lot of stupid rules.
Right.
And I met my first Hispanic person, and then they had him because he didn't, we could say what we want to say on our own show.
Yes.
He had hash marks in his drawers, in his skivvies, that we used to call them. But he had to walk around to everybody while you standing at attention and tell you, I got little brown hash marks in my skivvies. And me, I never heard nobody with the broken English. And I would laugh. And the guy would look at me and say, give me 25. And then I get down and do 25 push-ups, and I think about it, my jaws get full of air, and I would do it all over again. He said, little brown, whatever, get out of my life, is what he said. It was something close to that. This is years ago.
Did you ask him, hey, I'm curious. Are you, what race are you? What are you? What are you?
No. I just had never met no Spanish person.
Right.
And side note to that, when I first got to Long Beach, I called my mother and I said, hey, they have a new group of Black people out here. They have dark skin, darker than mine, but they have straight hair and they talk funny. It's a people from India. But they was darker than me. And I'm thinking, whoa.
It's funny because I'm imagining a young man from Alabama coming into Hueneme, Oxnard, Ventura for the very first time. you had to be like, man, there's a lot of Italians here. Like, what is going on in this town?
Yeah, it was a lot of
a lot of Hispanics, right?
Yeah, a lot of Hispanic. But my first 8 or 9 months, I was actually in Long Beach,
Okay.
which was a military town, and I had never been propositioned in my life. And you walking down the street, and some girl would get shoulder to shoulder with you. She's walking in the opposite direction. Blowjob.
Oh.
I say what? So all of that was new to me. Alabama, what they would call a prostitute or a hoe is some girl that you probably could, talk her into stuff real easy.
Yeah, no money exchange.
No money exchange. But when I first came to Long Beach, everybody, hey, sailor, you want a date? Huh? It was always that. It was a military town, so they proposition you left and right.
That's amazing. So
Yeah.
Now I want to jump over to your other half, the beautiful Denise Carter.
Hello.
Denise, you were born and you were raised in this area.
Yes, Oxnard.
Yeah, you were born in Oxnard.
Actually, I was born in Port Hueneme.
Okay, they used to have a hospital there, right?
They had a hospital there.
Was that on J Street?
It was no, it was actually on Port Hueneme. It was on Ventura Road.
Okay.
And by Wendy's over in that area.
Okay, see.
Oh, that was the Seventh-day Adventist?
It was the Adventist hospital.
Yeah, so they don't believe in God.
No, that is not true. You don't even do you know enough about the religion?
No, but tell me what's the difference?
I don't know anything about the religion. I would think they believe in God. They got a church.
I think they got the basics covered.
Okay, well, I could be wrong.
So Denise, you were born and raised, and I know you have a pretty big family.
Yeah, there's 8 of us.
8 brothers and sisters.
8 brothers and so there's 7. I would say there's including me, it's 8.
Okay.
So I said that right?
Yeah, including you. Yes, so there's 8 total. You have
There's
7
8
brothers
total.
and sisters.
4 boys, 4 girls.
Okay, total of 8.
Total of 8.
And you're what part? Middle?
I'm
oldest?
like the middle.
You're the middle,
So
okay.
it was my oldest brother, Charles, and then there's Doris, and then there's Denise.
Gotcha.
And there's Clinton. Then there's Christopher and Cedric. I'm thinking, I feel like I'm missing some. Cedric, Vanessa.
Brother. Did you mention him?
Yes, Cedric, Vanessa, and then Claudia. Claudia's
Gotcha.
the youngest.
So I know you came from a very hardworking family. We've talked
Yes.
about your mom and dad several times.
Yes.
This is how much I pay attention to the show. I know
The
that.
memory.
Oh yeah, I know that when you were was it 11 or 12, the house burned down?
Yeah. Well, no, actually, I was probably younger than that. Because I was going to Rose Park.
Right.
And so
So elementary school.
elementary school.
Okay.
Our house burned down.
You was an
and-
old person then.
Look at he's so bad. But
I'm
during
sorry.
that time, I vividly remember being at home and my mom was sick and wouldn't get out of bed. And I didn't quite get it, but we had like a caretaker that was taking care of her. She's like a maid, but she was really keeping up with my mom and the kids, kind of a babysitter. But she was kind of a strange lady. She had these dolls that were almost the same size as them. It was weird.
Would you bring them to the house?
She would bring them to the house. I would like voodoo. Yeah, it was like how the porcelain dolls
Right.
back in the day, people collected them. It was just weird. I didn't remember. I remember that, but I remember looking at my mom, and my mom, I was like, "Is she okay?" Because she would just, she would have bowel movements and urinate on herself. She was just sick, and I was a nosy kid, and I remember her saying, "We ain't gonna live here long," and really, literally, the next day, our house burned down. We went to spend the night with my aunt. And we were on our way to school in the morning, dropping us off, and we saw the fire and police and everything. But of course, we didn't know our house was burning down until after they picked us up from school, and that's when we found out. But the girls went to go stay at my aunt's house, and the boys stayed with my dad, and my dad threw them all out the window. And in the morning, that's how everybody survived.
That's incredible.
Isn't that incredible?
that-
106 Driscoll, I'll never forget it.
The fact that your dad, because I know your dad was in the restaurant business.
Yeah.
Very hardworking guy.
Very
to be able
hardworking.
to afford 8 kids, to be able to have a home, to be able to have a caretaker for your mom,
He was a hustler.
big time hustler, and then to be awake enough to throw the boys out the window.
Well, my dad was a hustler. I remember him working. He was a janitor. He worked at Fox Theater. He worked at all these places. When we were just kids, we would go and help clean up the Fox Theater and sweep it up. I remember we used to go. This is ghetto. We were like, you know how the Kool-Aid would come down from the little containers.
Yeah.
We'd be on there slurping up, getting drink all the time. At the end of the night before we cleaned it all up, and we would find all kinds of stuff in the theater. It's weird. Then we go to Mayfair. That's how old. That's a long time ago. Mayfair. We would get snacks.
Mayfair's a grocery store.
Yeah, we would go there afterwards. It was the middle of the night, and then we go home and go to sleep.
And that growing up with a parent that had a disability, and it's not, and there's a lot of people don't know it, but you've talked about it on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It was a mental health issue.
Yeah,
and that is why you're such an advocate for it today, for mental health,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm with you on that, because mental health is such an important part. But a lot of people neglect that, especially people I'm not that much younger than you guys, but we neglect that as like, oh, man, that's weak. I'm not gonna deal with that.
That's interesting you say that. I got a cousin right now. I cringe when I go to the grocery store and see her sitting outside with a basket. And it's mental health.
Right.
And she just won't get any help.
Right.
And she'll see me and she'll say, hey. And I'm like, damn, she saw me. And when you think about mental health, and it's not that you don't love them, but it's just that you choose not to deal with that at the time. Like, I ain't got time for this. You know?
Well, you've got your own things you're dealing
Exactly.
with. It's hard because, and here's the thing, what I've come to realize, if the person doesn't want the help, there's nothing we can do to help them get to where we want them to be.
Right.
It'll never work. So as you're growing up and you're fighting more and more, because I know your mom spent time away from you guys,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of time away from you
Mm-hmm.
guys, which your dad, again, now he's a single parent, working his tail off to get all this stuff accomplished, which he did. Got you guys in a new house, got you guys taken care of, and you guys, all 8 of you, came together to raise each other.
Right.
Now, I do know too that you've talked about when you were a teenager, you partied a little bit.
Yep.
You used to like to go out and have a good time as a teenager. Was that because there was no adult supervision there?
Absolutely. My dad, we were latchkey kids.
Right.
My dad worked the 3 to 11 shift, or he would go to work from 11 a.m. to like 11 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
We were just raising ourselves. And then at one point, I realized, my oldest brother, he was probably 5 years older than I, and he started spending more time with his girlfriend. She became pregnant. Then my sister started hanging out with her boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
She moved on, and then it was just me. And then I was on the basketball team, and I got in an argument with the coach, and I didn't know how to stop. And the next thing you know, I was kicked off the basketball team and started hanging out with friends, going to La Colonia, where we can go and drink and smoke weed and hang out. And I became pregnant, and I was scared to tell somebody, but I walked around literally with a trench coat because I was scared to tell somebody. And my brother finally said it. He called me Woo. Woo's pregnant. I was like, liar. But he wasn't a liar.
He said it in front of your dad?
He said that in front of anybody who would listen. And my older brother, and he rest his soul. He's gone now, but it was crazy.
Yeah.
And I think about, we were all really good at a lot of things. Sales. My brother should have been a car salesman, but he ended up selling this stuff called Advantage. When he would go to house spraying stuff on people's floor, he was really good at it. And I think about him a lot because I was the one that found he got fired from his job or laid off. And I found this. I said, hey, they're hiring these guys. You got to go to this hotel. And he got the job, and he just went on the road, and he never really came. He came back. When he came back, it was not himself because he was staying in hotels and became hooked on drugs. And it was just sad. He went to prison. He came out. He got married, went back to prison, came out. And then they called us one day and said his liver exploded, and he had 48 hours. And we all went there and spoke to him before he passed away. And we were there to support my mom in Washington, Tacoma, Washington.
Was she living up there at that time?
No, she was living here. We just all took her up there.
Right.
It was the one thing I could say that I commend Wills from, because what happened was the ER doctor called my dad and said, your son's going to die. And, something. And he calls me, Wook, doctor said Charles Jr. is going to die. And I was like, what? Give me the phone number. That don't make sense. Isn't he in jail? Like, and then I talked to the guy and he said, yeah. And I called my mom and I told Wills, I said, I feel like we have to be there to support her. And he's like, well, do what you got to do. And I'm like, nobody has any money. And so we put everything on the credit card and got everybody a ticket to fly up there, got two rental cars, 2 hotel rooms, and everybody went up there to support my mom, to be there for my brother. And we were all able to spend time with him before he passed away. It was the first kid that passed away. And it was a very emotional time because we actually got a chance to really bond. And that's the first time that year, and I can't remember what year right now, but my sister was crazy about Kevin Hart. Sister Vanessa, she was like, "Do you hear about Kevin Hart?" I'm like, "I don't know who he is." And she had everybody listening to him. I was like, I don't think he's that damn funny. Like when he first came out. Right. But that was what we did in the hotel. We just sat there listening to Kevin Hart over and over and over. And I remember that. But that was a bonding time for all of us. And I think my mom really appreciated us, all of us as a family. My father was afraid to fly. Mm-hmm. And so he was able to see my brother on FaceTime or, video. Right. And I was so grateful for Wills because he's just a stand-up guy. And he said, I think there was no, I was like, I got to get drunk to buy all these damn tickets. Right. And he just said he thought it was the right thing to do. And I'll never forget that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, with my family, we was always a strong bond. And like I said on the very first podcast that we done, I was a mama's boy. And so I listened to the older people and I seen, you all right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I've seen the worst of life, but, always, had her back because I knew that she gave the best that she could give under the circumstance.
So what do you mean when you say the worst of the worst? I'm curious.
Well, I mean, where you had to knock on somebody's door and says, "Hey, can I borrow a cup of flour?" It broke my heart to go knock on that door, but I knew that, that's what we had to do, a cup of beans or whatever, because that's the best that we could, do under the circumstances.
That explains why you have a problem when I said, I'll just go next door and ask for a stick of butter. They were like, literally, I will not ask you. Like, you will not go ask the neighbor for a stick of butter or a cup of sugar. I'm like, okay, we'll go to the store and forget it.
Yeah, but now we had to do that. Like I said, it was 10 of us. And my daddy had a job where he would train white guys to do his job, and they became his boss. So he was so he had a limited, like most people during that era, they had a limited education where they would have to work instead of, going to school or whatever. And so then they was, they had the limit. And so then the white guy would come in and be the boss.
And see, that's what I'm talking about. Like when you have to deal with all those things as a young man, to watch your dad deal with that, that's got to set you in some kind of motion. Like, hey, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to grow up like this. Now, talking to both of you guys and listening to how you grew up, there's a lot of parallels of how you grew up with the big families, with doing what you had to do to make it. But now I want to know. I'm dying to know about that fateful night in 1994. Am I right on the year?
You are.
In 1994. Now let me set the scene. You're at a dance club. Is it in Ventura?
It is. You remember the name of the club?
Yeah, Alexandria.
Yeah.
Where is that?
That was right. So right on Harbor Boulevard and
Spinnaker.
Schooner.
Okay, on Schooner. Oh, right by the club, by the old comedy club.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's actually yes. It's over. It's called something else now.
Yeah.
But they used the hotel. It's the hotel.
The Holiday Inn.
Yes.
Pier Point. Whatever.
The Holiday Inn.
Okay.
They now have. They used to have brunch there.
Okay. Is it a brunch you guys met at, or was this the nightclub?
It was the nightclub.
It was the nightclub. Now we're talking 1994.
Yes.
Wills has a daughter. You've got 2 kids at this point, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, here it is. Now I'm gonna take us through the scene. I want to know what you guys are thinking. So right now I got some music playing. You guys can't hear it, but I got music. Al, what I want to know is, I know Wills is there, and we hang out with friends that night.
No, I was
You're by yourself.
solo act.
Oh shit! Okay, you were on the prowl that night.
Well, you can say that.
Yeah, you had to be. There's no other reason for you to be there. So there's Wills, and now I want you to picture Denise with her braids, swinging them around, and Wills was afraid to get hit in the face with those things. So you didn't ask her to dance the first night.
No, the first night I watched her. This little white guy was trying to dance with her, and he had webs all across his face from her braids. And so the second night, I was dancing with her sister, and the sister traded me off to her. And I'm thinking, oh boy, here we go. And she started swinging her braids around, but I was in good shape then, so I was ducking and dodging like a good boxer.
You look like Mike Tyson, not trying to get punched.
Yeah, she never did hit me. So, but she was not like she wasn't trying. She had beads on the bottom of her braids.
Oh.
And they would, I mean, that was like getting a whooping, actually.
That was almost a defense mechanism for little white guys coming up trying to dance.
The Patrice Rushton deal. That's what you had
so, but I thought it was fun to watching that guy the first night. I'm thinking, oh boy, this guy, but
were you surprised that she was there the second night that you went?
Yeah, I was shocked.
Well, I was singing. So this band that was out there, they said, anybody want to sing? And I said, yes. So I got up and I was singing with the band. So the next night I came back because the band was playing again. I was telling all my friends, y'all should come. They're going to let me sing. They're going to let me sing. That's why we went the second night.
Did you notice Wills the first night?
I saw him at the end of the bar because he was buying drinks for one of my good friends. She was like a sister friend. And she had all these drinks when I got off the stage. I said, who bought all these drinks? She said, all these old men around here buying me drinks. Well, all the men that were, there was a bunch of shots of tequila at the bar. And a bunch of people had bought her Candice to drink.
Yeah, no, that wasn't me. Now, I was sitting so I could see everything.
But Candice left and went to Bombay's and left me there. I didn't want to go to Bombay's. Yeah. I was still hanging out.
No, I was there, with my back to the wall so I could see everything going on because that's how I was brought up.
Right.
So you see everything, people coming in, see who's doing what to whom, and, you go from there.
So she caught your eye, obviously, the first night because you remember.
Yeah, I remember that.
So the chances of you going back and seeing her a second night, and the chance of her singing that second night, that's got to be fake because there's no way that you saw her. You're like, oh man, she just kicked the shit out of the white guy.
Yeah.
And then the next night, you're
like I said, I'm watching everything.
You were ready to get the shit kicked out of you. The second night.
I was ready. Yeah, so it was just kind of ironic. And even when we left the club that night.
You left together that night?
Not quite.
Okay.
But we ended up together because we was coincidental that we was parked directly opposite each other in the parking lot. And so then I think you hollered at me or something. You and Felicia was in the car together. And I was parked in front of you guys. You don't remember that, do you?
I'm listening.
Yeah, because you don't remember. I had that memory.
I remember he said, where are you guys from? There was 8 of us. And each person said they was from somewhere in the South.
Right.
Georgia, Alabama, Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina. Then I said, I'm from Mississippi. Is what I said, because he was from Alabama.
Right.
But go ahead.
Yeah, and so then actually, you want to go grab something to eat. And so we went to In-N-Out, but before we got there, she was asleep.
I had been drinking.
I said, what in the world?
So anyway, you two, right? In the car now? Okay.
Yeah, so we left her girlfriend. What's her name? Felicia. So we left her girlfriend. I'm trying to take her home. And of course, she kept going to sleep on me. But she did tell me before she fell asleep that she lived on, was it 7th place?
6th place.
6th place. So I get her home and, and she don't want to get out of the car. And so then the rest of it, we've been together ever since.
And now, did you guys, how long was it before she became Mrs. Carter?
We kicked it around for about 3.5, 4 years.
But I moved in probably less than 6 months.
Yeah.
Now that's an interesting thing. Now she moves into your house. Now you've been a bachelor for a very long time.
Yes.
At this point, now she's got 2 kids. She's going to move into your house.
I was gonna rent a room. That's how I was gonna rent a room.
That's how you got her.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. You had
guys
2
both
extra rooms. I was gonna
Yeah.
rent them.
Yeah, you both knew you guys were going to share a room. There was no way around that. It had to happen.
Yeah.
So you guys get you guys are together. You're moved in for the first time. Denise, you're working at the post office at this time.
Was I working at the post office?
I think he was at was it Meditech?
Oh yes, I was working at Meditech during that time.
Now during Meditech, when you were there, you were not happy there, correct?
I was happy there. I had some challenges with the owner. They kept firing people in the middle of the day. Yes, you have a good memory.
So you were happy, but you weren't happy with the owner. They were firing people in the middle of the day. You came home from lunch.
Yes.
And then you knew that's when you had that conversation with Wills. You knew this is the guy. I've got to marry this guy because it is my favorite line that you guys have ever talked about on this show. 45 episodes. It is my favorite line. He told you you're not going. You came home for lunch.
Yeah.
He told you, I'm not going. You're not going back. You're done there. And you said, how can I afford to pay the rent? And he said, I will get a second job and I will shovel shit before you go back to work at a place
He
like
did
that.
tell me that.
I get tears just to hear that. That's true though.
He did say that. And I think what happened that day is I called him from a payphone and he said, have you taken lunch? I said, you won't believe what happened. He said, have you taken lunch yet? I said, no. He said, well, meet me at the house. Let's have lunch. And when I told him what had transpired, he just said, no, you're not going back. And I was scared because I was like, I've never been without a job. I'm a single parent, trying to figure it out. I just moved in with them. What do I do? And he didn't care. He was just not going to let anybody treat me that way.
You know, that's a hell of a guy.
He is a hell of a guy. And you know what? Can you believe he eventually asked me to marry him in 2000? Well, we ended up getting married in 2000, September 9th in 2000.
Yeah. So that was a 4-year gap between 94 and actually 6
6
years.
years.
We kicked it 6 years.
Yeah.
I was going to say that when you said 4.
Yeah, I just did the math right quick. I'm thinking, whoa, that was longer than I thought.
Yeah.
So after lots of in and out dates later, after all of this time, now let's take it there. Now year 2000, you're getting married. This is the first time you've been married, correct? Second time.
My second.
Your
as well.
second. So both of you have been married before. You guys know what you're going to put up with, know what you're not going to put up with. The only difference is now you still have kids.
I still have kids.
And this is now going to be stepdad. Not just cool ass Will that we live with.
Right.
This is going to be stepdad.
Right.
What did your girls say? What was there? What did your daughter say?
Oh, my daughter, like I said, she's in Alabama, so that was different. And that was another long story. I like to tell about that one as well. But
Go ahead.
We got time.
okay, good.
Tell us about your daughter in Alabama.
Okay, my daughter in Alabama, I didn't know about her.
He was a player.
No, I was just, I was doing what, teenagers do.
Right.
But anyway, I went in the military because her mother, she was, we was all from the hood. And so that's where people got cut, stabbed, and shot.
Mm-hmm.
And she tried to stab me 3 times. On the 3rd time, I says, no more. I says, you might get lucky one day. So then, and that's serious.
Yeah.
The first time I took the knife from her, went to sleep. Second time she pulled a knife on me, and I said, if that ever happen again, that's going to be the last time. And she pulled that old cheap knife on me again. And I said, that's it. And so then I was thinking about my future, with the military and stuff. And so anyway, I went in the military, and then I had an aunt she lived to be like 94 years old. But she says, Will, I'm babysitting this little girl who looks just like you. I said, huh? And she said her dad is in the Navy somewhere in California. And so we went on from that, and somewhere along the line, I said, well, I would love to see her when I, come home to visit. And so then when I got the chance to go on leave, and I said, well, I'm going to have a blood test because, it was, her mama was telling her, yes, Will is her father. And I said, I'm going to do a blood test and all of that. And I finally saw this little girl. I looked in her eyes, And it was like looking in the mirror. I said, holy crap, she do look like me. And there was no blood test, and we've been together ever since.
So you never took a blood test? You know this is your daughter? And
Hey, well, no doubt in my mind.
And her mother is...
Her mother's deceased now. She ended up with cancer of some sort, and she passed away.
But before that,
her mother was the one with the knife.
Yeah. Oh, she was.
What a small world to that to happen to you.
But didn't she end up in prison because she finally got a victim?
No, well, she didn't stab him. She caught her boyfriend in the house with somebody else, and she set the whole house on fire.
Whoa, hold on. We're not getting past that. Hold on. So she just said, now see, now again, we talk about mental health. That is a huge, that's an issue. That's your daughter grew up. How old was your daughter when you came into her life?
She probably was about 7, 8, somewhere along in there.
And where did she live after the mom's in prison now for arson and attempted murder?
It was so happened that the lady that adopted her was related to one of my cousins. And so that's why my aunt was babysitting her. Gotcha. So we all tied in there together somehow. And, all the planets aligned with each other.
It's such a small world that it just so happens that she's babysitting someone.
Yeah.
Her aunt's babysitting someone. That you ended up having a relationship with previous. The timeline all goes out. This is your daughter. Mm-hmm. Your aunt's got to be like, you look just like my nephew. There's no way that we're not related.
Yeah, because I used to always check in with the older people. I always like to listen and find out how their world is going. And
I think it's phenomenal that happened and that she stayed in your life. And even though somebody adopted her, you were still
absolutely
a parent.
Yeah.
Thousands of miles away, you're still there and you're still doing what you could. That speaks volumes.
Yeah. We still together. We talk or text 24/7
every day.
She loves her dad.
Yeah,
I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
And but only thing I really hate about that whole deal, and I never really mentioned that, is she was a twin, and her mother. I didn't know it was possible. She had the first baby of the twin. Right. And standing up and let the baby fall on the floor, which was the boy. So I would have had, twins in my life. But we had a lot of twins in my family. So me and my daughter, we do talk about that occasionally. And so the other twin, then she found out later that she had another kid, and then the same night, so she gave birth to 2 kids. Yeah.
And it's funny how not funny, but it's funny how the world works that way.
Yeah.
Even though your son, that happened to him, and where tragedy.
Yeah, definitely.
Your daughter became such an intricate part of your life, and became this your why, basically.
Yeah.
You did what you did for her, even though she was
absolutely.
Her family, you were still an amazing part of her life. She's in your life today.
Yeah.
Thank God for technology. That she's there with you every single day. You guys talk. That's amazing. Now with your kids, when now things are changing, things are now we're going to be Carters.
Yeah.
We're going to be in the family. What was their thought or was it like finally, or was it like, damn, we're going to mess this up? Like, what is this?
We had lived under one household for many years, for at least 6 years prior to that. So I think he was already the father figure for them. He taught them how to drive, and he loved to cook. So,
speaking of that,
my first bones and collard greens and rice, right?
No, my first meal. I remember that because Tika threw it up.
Yeah,
he's close. It wasn't neck bones though. He was close.
Actually, it was
turkey necks.
No, it wasn't turkey necks.
Yes, it was.
No, I'm gonna tell you, girl. I remember.
Okay, what was it, Wills? What was it?
It's what's the Italian thingy? With the noodles and
beef stroganoff.
Beef stroganoff, and she threw the whole thing up in the toilet, on the side of the toilet. She didn't make it to the toilet, and I'm thinking, oh my Lord.
I could have swore it was neck bones. I could have swore
I thought it was for some reason, but I thought it was turkey necks. But
no, I did cook the turkey necks. I love turkey necks. But it was beef stroganoff that she threw up. I'm about to ask her, be 100% sure.
But one thing about it is Will's liked to cook. When we first moved in with Will's, his first wife had taken most of his furniture. There was nothing there.
She took all of it.
There weren't even any toilet paper holders, towel holders, all gone. Everything gone except for a 13-inch black and white TV and a couch. I forgot, like an armoire kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not much anything else, in a bed.
Was this the house you guys live in now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why did she take everything? I'm just curious.
I don't know. That's the question. No, she should have been. She should have been an actor, actress, I should say. Thank you. Because we had decided it's not working, which I could live with that. And so then we decided who was going to take what furniture. And so I'm working nights, and she says, "Hey, we got a lot of our same friends, and they probably feel uncomfortable if you are here while they moving, loading the truck." I said, "Okay, cool." I went down on Bard Road, Bubbling Springs, sat in my car and went to sleep. Woke up by 3 or 4 hours later, hoping she'd be gone. I get to the house. My pride and joy was my regulation size pool table. And from the look of the truck, that was the first thing that she put on the truck. I had the guys put on the truck. And so then I'm talking to the guys and said, "Hey, you're going to have to take my pool table off." And they went in there and said, "Well, she paying us, so we have to talk to her." It wasn't nobody I knew. It wasn't no friends. So, but anyway, so she come back out of there and she dialed 911 and she screamed to the top of her voice, "My husband is trying to kill me." And I had 5 of the biggest cops I ever seen in my life all on my lawn, surrounded me. And I think if I had a sneeze, they would have shot me.
Oh.
And then the lieutenant, the sergeant, whatever he was a small guy. And he says, "Hey, we can't stay here all day and we can't leave you here, so you got to go." And when I came back, you could hear echo in the house. "Hello, hello, hello."
But what's interesting? He worked nights. It was ironic that we met. He just happened to be off that weekend.
That's another thing. So not the fact that he was there the first night, second night, and he normally works nights. I mean, so for you guys, it was just meant to be.
Yeah. It was bound to happen.
Now, I'm not trying to rip a Band-Aid off, but how long was it after she left and left you with nothing that Denise came in and fixed everything?
Yeah, I don't know. My first thought, my first plan, to be honest with you, and I told her that, is I was planning on leaving California. I said, I have nothing else left here. I said, I'm going home, back to where, my stomping ground. I'll be looking.
We're good. No.
Okay. And that was my intention. So I went out to dance just to pass some time away. So I wasn't trying to meet nobody. And when I first met her the first time, that's the question you asked me earlier, it says, if I don't dance with some of these black girls, they going to think, hey, I got a problem. So I had to make sure I included somebody black in my dance routine, because I was just there dancing. I didn't want to know nobody's name or phone number, nothing, because I'm planning on going back to Alabama.
And the rest was history, because you stayed here.
I stayed here.
You married this beautiful woman that is your entire life.
Yeah, I was thinking that she was talking a while ago about those voodoo dolls. I'm starting to wonder.
I never collected any dolls.
Oh, okay, because I said, man, I feel an itch every now and again.
But you know what? I think that it doesn't go unnoticed that you became an intricate part of my family. My mom, my mom's sisters, all of them, my grandmother, everybody counted on Will's. My grandmother, she was sick. She couldn't walk anymore, and she lived upstairs at my aunt's house. Even when she became real ill, they'd bring her down, but she wouldn't let nobody bring her upstairs but Will's, because Will's, he was strong, and she knew he wouldn't drop her.
Right.
Yeah, I was just telling your cousin about that, your cousin Kathy.
Uh-huh.
I said I was proud that she would, give me the honor of taking her up the stairs. She didn't trust nobody else to do it.
Because Wills used to pump iron. Wills is buff during
Oh,
that
I've
time.
seen pictures.
Yeah.
I've seen pictures of Will. He had long hair and he had muscles.
You must.
And I know that your mom loved Will's because of again, I listened to every episode intently. Root beer floats.
Root beer floats.
Root beer floats was your mom's thing.
Yeah.
And Will's would take her to go get those.
Yeah.
Or Mr. Will's and take you to In and Out.
Yeah, we went to grab a burger, and then on the way home, she said, I want to get me a float because everybody don't sell floats. So she got a cup of ice cream from one place, and she said, I still want me a float. And I'm thinking, oh boy. But we both had In and Out.
Right.
And I'm close to her house, so we passed all the McDonald's and all them other places. So I'm taking her home. Mr. Wills, where you going? I'm taking you home. You know, it's a McDonald's down the street. But my food will get cold. That's okay. You have a microwave, don't you? I said, wow. I did take over that though.
And you did, and I can tell because this was some of the parenting. You're getting to spend time with this lovely lady who treats you amazingly. I know. So, but here you are. You love Denise so much that you were putting up with everything just for her.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so now let's get into, and we're not going to stay too long on this. I'm trying to get through because you guys are so interesting. It's just we're trying to mesh both these lives together because now they're together. They're put together. And now we are in the phase where Denise says, hey, I want to be a stand-up comedian. And Will happens to like stand-up comedy. He can actually write material. He knows jokes. He knows all these things. What was the conversation between you guys when it was said, I think I want to try this?
It's interesting. I just met Wills, and I said, "Oh, I'm a comedian," and I did a show at the Hilton back then on the Esplanade, and I was so excited he was going to come see me, and I got involved with a heckler, and I lost where I was in my story. First time he came at me, and I shut him down. And then the second time I got involved with the same heckler, I should have just blew him off. I shut him down, but I forgot where I was in my story. And I was crushed because it was the first time he was seeing me on stage. And my cousins were like, oh man, we snuck in here to see you. You ain't funny. And I was just like, damn, I'll never do this again. And that was in 1994, 95.
Yeah, 94, 95.
And then it wasn't, and then I didn't want to do it again. And he kept telling me, oh, you could just go up there and just tell everybody, I'm crazy. My mama was crazy. And I just forgot where I was. And I didn't think it was funny. Like, I was like, no, I'm not doing it. That hurt. It crushed me. It hurt my feelings so bad. And it was a hard thing for me to come back from until 2013 when my dad, 2012, 13, my dad was sick and I saw an ad in the paper to become a comedian. I never did it again until then. But I was voted most humorous in my 8th grade class.
So how long were you doing stand-up in
94? It was literally on a dare. It was like 94, 90, 93, 94. I remember this guy, Chuck Dennis. He was trying to sell tickets to go to his comedy show, and it was at the Ventura Harbor.
Was it Hornblowers then?
But it wasn't Hornblowers. It was actually a hotel. Okay. The hotel of the Marriott. Okay. And they had this little side room, and he would do comedy shows there. And I remember going, and I was like, dude, I'm funny. Ain't no way I'm paying. And so give me 5 minutes. And I went, and the people loved me. Right. And I went again, and I just had all these ideas. I had friends that would tell me different things, and I thought it was funny. And I was just blowing up. And it was that last show that I did for Rodney Tate. I'll never forget. Him and his friends had a little club they were doing. And I couldn't shake it. I couldn't get over the boo. I couldn't get over the boo. And it was hard. And so now I think from that, every comic has a off night or things aren't funny. And, it took me a long time to realize when people aren't laughing or clapping or whatever, they're listening. Right. And I can't always think I'm going to find the laughter. If I think it's funny, I just got to go with it. Because in a lot of it, the art of telling stories is just trying to understand the beginning, the middle, and the end. And enjoying yourself. I think that's really what it is. But Will's helped me develop the muscle to be okay with wherever I was whatever I was.
See, I know a little bit about stand-up comedy, not a whole lot. I know a little bit.
Yeah, right.
So I look at your team, what you guys have put together, and it works. It works. I mean, I know what Wills does.
Mhm.
I know because I hear it. I hear some of your material. I hear Wills when you're telling the joke. I hear it. So I know what he's doing, and I know his support for you is amazing. He doesn't. It doesn't. I have never seen somebody so supportive of a spouse's dream like I do here. And this is
He
something
texts me before I hit the stage every time I'm on the show. Bring the energy.
Mhm.
Bring all the energy. Don't forget to bring your energy. Every text message before a show, before I hit the stage.
Because,
I don't care when it's my turn.
You know, as a spectator, I sit back in the audience and I could see and hear what all the people are saying and thinking. And
what are they saying, hearing, and thinking? What is
no, people they be like, if
They're
you
like, this show sucks.
no, if you telling the story, they be down the edge of their chair listening to everything, especially when you get the hiking thing. Stop it. So anyway, especially with the hiking thing, step by step, and then people are waiting to see what happens, see that the mountain lion come out to get you or what. And I heard this noise, and they on bated breath. And then when you give them the funny, then they sit back in their seat and they laugh. And I got them. And then, of course, sometimes you get off track, and I'm thinking, what the hell is she doing? That's not what we practice.
You're right. I'm going to do better.
But that's what I like. I like to see the audience. And then after the show, they come up to me. Did that really happen? I said, yeah. And I'll leave them there.
Yeah. How come you never wanted to do stand-up?
Heck no, I would freeze up.
No, I listen, you're talking to somebody who never wanted to do it. I thought that it was the dumbest shit in the world, and I did it again on a dare.
Yeah.
And so many comics have become comics out of a dare. I dare you to do 5 minutes.
I dare myself too.
I'll give you 5 minutes.
No.
On my next show. I think we should.
No.
I think we should. I think, Wills, you have a lot of good stories. You have some amazing stories.
How about this? I'll sit up there. You sit on my lap, and then you
Oh,
just.
oh boy, we going there.
So here's the thing. You guys, and I almost want to do a part 2 because it's so. There's a lot in this relationships that we didn't even get to cover, but we did get to cover where you both came from. You both came from hard times, and those hard times translated into this love story between both of you. I have been with you guys. I almost feel like family.
You are family.
I almost feel like,
Only if you come over and eat some oxtail.
I'm in. I feel like I'm with you guys so much that I feel like I'm watching my aunt and uncle just like hash it out. All of it. It's an amazing thing, and I want to thank you guys for always welcoming me, whether it's here, it's at your home. You guys, I watch your love story, and I'm like, wow, I am truly watching something here remarkable, because in today's society, marriages, as you know, both of you know, and as I know, they're not easy.
No.
They're very hard. And to watch you guys bounce off of each other and you little jabs here, little jabs there, but at the end of the day, you can see how much each of you loves each other. I think that was what the point of this interview was to get people to see who the Carters are. Now, we can hear all day about Will's car chases and Dr. such and such and a writer for this or that. Everybody that I've talked to wants to know about Denise and Wills. And it is Wills, by the way. Wills. Not Willis, not Willie, not Wiley. It's Wills. Okay?
And somebody said, is that short for Williams? No, ma'am.
And you know what, Phil, first of all, I want to say thank you. You know, when you first said, you know, my wife really wants to know more about you guys. You know, it's the story behind us and what we do. We've always been like the person in my family and the person in his family. We're givers. We're the ones that want to, like every time there was a family gathering, they would gather at our house for the Easter, for Christmas, dinner, different holidays. And it's interesting now as we start to age, how it's not the same. People come to town, and this is just me being very transparent. I feel like that art of family has changed since technology has been around.
It's dissipating for sure.
It's not the same. So when my kids would come to town, I'd call everybody up. Hey, we're barbecuing. We're doing this. We're doing that. Come on over. Have a meal. It's not the same.
Right.
I had some family members come to town. They never even reached out to us.
It's funny you say that because I've got my nieces are my world. They're tattooed on me. The oldest one, she was in town. And why are you in Ventura? And you didn't call me.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't reach out. And when I found out, I go, "You're in Ventura?" She says, "Oh yeah, we went and did this. I go, "Where are you now?" She says, "Oh, we're driving back." I was like, "Come visit me. I'm like your dad. I have done everything for you guys." And that, so I see that. My wife and I have those conversations. Like, well, she's growing up. She lives with her boyfriend. They probably want to just get away. They don't have to see us every time. And I'm very polite. I'm like, "No, bitch, they do need to come see me. I paid for too much stuff for them not to come see." But I get it.
I mean, even a phone call,
yes,
a text message, nothing. And even my grandson, I asked for a 60-second call.
Right.
You can't be that busy in 24 hours. And he's like, "I'll reach out soon. I'll reach out soon." And I said, his sister reached out. He's 17. He'll be 17 in August. But I said to myself, this generation will be lost because the connection is not there.
It's not there anymore. Parents use the tablets. Parents use the phones to parent. I mean, when we were kids, I mean, our parents,
TV.
They used the TV, but still, we got a lesson from whether it was Wheezy Jefferson or Mrs. Brady or whoever it was. We still got a lesson.
Yes. The Fonz, Happy Days.
Yeah, when he said sit on it, I sat on it. I knew what he was saying. But to watch you guys and how you are with your respective families, to watch you with your collective family now, because you guys are a family of put together here and put together here and put together here to make this beautiful family that I see every time. I've seen you with your daughter. I've seen you with your grandson. I've seen you with your grandson.
Yeah.
And your daughter, because I don't believe in the word step. I don't like that word.
No,
You've been their dad for almost 30 years. 31 to be exact.
Wow.
Yeah,
30. That's a long time.
Only because I can count fast. So that's what it is. So the reason I wanted to do this particular episode, because it's great. We have great guests. We do the podcast sounds amazing, but what makes it really hanging out with the Carters is actually hanging out with the Carters. So with that said, you guys have been listening to another episode of Hanging Out with the Carters. You can find us, because I'm an official Carter now. You can find us wherever you find your podcast: Apple Podcast, Spotify, Speaker, Showtime, HBO, whatever it is, you will find it there. But I do want to say this, because this is normally Denise's job, but she is taking the night off tonight. I would love to see all of you Thursday, July 24th at Levity Live. And I don't care who's on this show except for the star herself. Come see Denise Carter live at Oxnard Levity Live again, Thursday, July 24th, 7:30. Doors open at 6 p.m. I would love to see each and every one of you there. For Denise and for Wills, this is Phil Medina, the producer of this show. And today, it was my honor and my pleasure to sit in as the special host. I would love to do a part 2 because I want to know more about the Carters. Good night, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
All right.
That was awesome.
That's good. Hope you guys like it.
Yes, I
do you, first of all, thank you guys. That was, I promise you will get a lot of feedback